Hello, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Back on the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society in America's YouTube channel. My name's Tom Smith. I am joined by Mr. Ben Diedrich out in Chicago and Ms. Jenna Eli out in LA.
Hello.
I'm in the mountains of upstate New York, so between the three of us, we have the time zones tackled.
Yeah, look at that Tom, that cabin.
A very happy Burns night. What's that?
That cabin is quite impressive. Tell us.
Yeah.
Deer back
a lot of wood going on. It's a cedar situation.
A cedar situation.
I bought it. We bought it a few years ago, and I mean, we do nothing with this upstairs. So I'm like, you know what? I'm taking it over as my command center.
So like you can just fill the whole place up with new mixed spirit, and then walk away for a few years.
Probably get some amateur distillation going on somewhere, maybe out in the woodshed or something, and we could just go crazy. That is not American oak, Charles. Well, maybe it is. I don't know where the cedar comes from, but I'm sure. Well, anyway, happy Burns night, guys. It's a little different this year. Last year at this time, I think the three of us had probably wrapped up all of our events. We would usually do in-person events, of course, for Burns night in different restaurants or bars around the country. And, always great fun. We're usually, rocking out a kilt. We have some pipers piping people in, 4-course meal and a lot of great whiskey, of course, but this year, obviously, a little different. So, maybe you don't need the kilts and the pipers and all that stuff to celebrate what this is all about, which is really just coming together and celebrating Scotland and celebrating Robert Burns in particular, and certainly lots of fine whiskey. So, let's just have a nice chat. We have some cool whiskeys that we're going to be showing, including, of course, the Burns Night bottling that we released earlier in January via lottery, and of course, we're three Americans here, so we have to bring some sort of professionalism to a Burns Night. So last year, I did a Burns supper in Boston at the Haven, more specifically Jamaica Plain. It's kind of the emerald necklace of Boston. And a gentleman there named Jason Waddleton, who I've been friends with now for a few years. I was introduced to him by Kenny Gordon in Boston because we actually were releasing Irish whiskeys at the time. So I said, hey man, Kenny, help me out. You guys are not at a loss for Irish pubs. What's a good one where I could where I could partner with someone and throw a little party? And he said, well, actually, I know a great guy. He runs the only Scottish pub in Boston. And that's how I met Jason and was introduced to the Haven. So from that point forward, we do all of our Boston events at the Haven. And in January of last year, I had the privilege to watch Jason just kick serious ass on a Burns night. I mean, his address was killer. It was absolutely perfect. And so I couldn't think of a better person to join us and talk to us a little bit about Robert Burns, about his experience, both being from Scotland and bringing that tradition to the U.S. and creating a very successful series of Burns suppers at the Haven. So, I think without further ado, we should bring in our resident bard of Bedlam, Mr. Jason Waddleton. Jason, come on in.
Well, we have to let him in. Boom, Jason.
Pleasure to see you folks. How is everyone doing tonight?
Welcome, man. Welcome.
Brilliant.
How are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'm missing your face in here this year, of course. But
I know. Well, the face takes up a lot of room, so at least you have more space to work. But yeah, I miss you too, man, and really can't wait to get some events going back at the Haven. It's always a great venue and a wonderful, wonderful group of people who come together consistently. We have a really solid core there. So miss you all dearly. If you're tuning in, hope to see you again in person, shake hands, share a dram, and just celebrate this wonderful whiskey. But yeah, so Jason, talk to us a little bit.
Okay.
You grew up. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe you grew up in the town where the deep fried Mars bar was created. Is this true?
You're bringing it on. You've done the deep dive into the internet and found it all out. The truth is out. It is true, and it's actually we did a tongue-in-cheek naming of the restaurant back in 2010. And that's why we called it the Haven. It's an allusion to not only the place, Stonehaven, but the fish and chip shop that served the first deep fried Mars bar. It's since changed names, but it was called the Haven. Yeah. So that was always a nice thing, because prior to opening, a lot of the local neighborhood folks would be asking us, you're not serving haggis, are you? Because they'd hear we're opening a Scottish restaurant, and that was their number one question. And then, of course, we were able to educate them on the delights of the deep fried Mars bar, which it goes so well with any whiskey, basically.
Absolutely, I can attest to this. I've had several deep fried Mars bars at your place in the wee hours of the morning.
It's actually obviously in keeping. Just to tell your friends online here, the Haven's been here 10 years, 11 actually coming up. Started in 2010, and we've held a Burns night every year. So, in keeping with the Scottish parsimony, we host not one but 5 Burns nights every year. Yours last year was one of those, of course, Tom. So, and we've always done that. So, we get about 70 people in here. So when you add all that up, it's about 3,500 people have attended in this small place a Burns night. So it's packed, it's lovely, it's great intimacy. It's got everything that you would want on a Burns night. Everyone at home to understand that element and the tradition. I mean, it goes back to when Burns, I think the first one was like in 1892, when friends of Burns wanted to memorialize him. And there was a tradition of that going on at the time, once for various historical figures. So there would be a something supper, maybe a Wellington supper, but they died out over time. But the Burns tradition grew and grew. As we all know, some background to Burns is that he's got kind of worldwide fame. The first foreign person to appear on a Coca-Cola bottle, for instance. He was the first foreigner to appear on a Russian stamp. The tune to Auld Lang Syne is the tune that the Chinese army used for their marching song. So it literally spreads everywhere throughout the world. And the Russians loved him because he was a plowman poet. So he's a working class guy, right? Who achieved fame in his day, not after. During his lifetime, he was a famous person. At his funeral, there was 10,000 people. So his infamy was in existence through his lifetime. And he was taken on board by the high society in Edinburgh. They printed his poems. They sold out. The Kilmarnock edition, which is his first collection of poems. If you could have one of those today, you'd be a rich man, right? But he achieved worldwide fame. Not so much in his life worldwide, but later. Now, you mentioned Stonehaven. Stonehaven's actually got a connection with Burns too. So this gives you a background as to why basically an itinerant farmer would be able to achieve such majesty and beautiful poetry, right? Well, his father's from Stonehaven, and in Stonehaven, it's in the northeast of Scotland. They have their own dialect there. It's called Doric. If you ever saw the movie Brave, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, they had a character in it, which was very strange, but a Disney character that spoke Doric. And they did the filming at Dunnottar Castle. They modelled it on there. Should I say it's animation? But they modelled it on Dunnottar Castle, which is just south of Stonehaven. And they used the Doric language. Some words are very influenced from sort of Danish and Norwegian. Things like a girl is a quiney, a guy is a loony. When they ask you how are things, they might say fit like. And so what I'm saying is, his father moved from Stonehaven and he moved south. He had to move for work, went through Edinburgh and then settled in Ayrshire, the other side of the country, right? So obviously the communications then would have been letter or who knows. But certainly no phones or internet. And but what happened with the language, the Doric dialect, right? So in Burns' household, he grew up speaking Doric, English, Old Scots. So he kind of had three languages going on. And then he later was taught some French and Latin. And that explains why a ploughman poet was able to achieve such amazing lyrical poems that obviously have stood the test of time. That's
fantastic. Well, listen, let's take a pause. Let's take a pause and share a cup of kindness. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but yeah, we have these some beautiful whiskeys in front of us, and so I want to wet my whistle. I think Ben already got a head start, so.
Yeah, just Jason. The moment you started speaking, I think I had to just pull a dram. The authenticity is just beaming here. And I love, by the way, just quick note before we do the first toast. Getting a lot of comments. First of all, one, and Tom, your cabin. A lot of interests overall in the background.
Come on by, guys.
And then the first comment, Jason, before we even went live, coming from Charles Hoffman saying Jason does an amazing address of the haggis. A lot of love for the Haven in the chat right now. We have, let's see, we have just over 100 people watching. So I don't know if you could fit 100 people at the Haven. It looks like kind of tight quarters, but let's just pretend for a moment that we're all there.
Nice.
So
let me just introduce this first whiskey. I think, or Jenna, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
You got that.
I've actually enjoyed this whiskey quite a bit. So the first cask that we're going to be enjoying tonight is Cask 115.18. It is a 29-year Speyside from a refill ex-bourbon barrel at 47.1% ABV, and it is called Barley Ballet.
Nice.
I love it.
So we've been talking about Burn Supper for a lot of the month, and we've been, talking about, if you can, executing a Burn Supper yourself at home, and haggis isn't the easiest thing to get a hold of, but if you could, and perhaps do that, we wanted to kind of play around with some different whiskeys. So in our mid-month outturn, we talked about some whiskeys that were released then that could potentially pair with a Burn Supper, or even other dinners that you're planning for yourselves, your friends, family. So tonight, kind of in the same style of that, we're kicking it off with this very elegant Speyside whiskey that in the light and delicate profile could very, very easily work as an aperitif whiskey. Absolutely gorgeous. Jason, you happen to have a toast that we could all administer our first dram with?
I do, and it's a toast from Burns himself, of course, fitting with this evening's agenda. He was a quick introduction of the toast. It'll take 10 seconds. He was an exciseman in his lifetime, as well as a ploughman, as well as a poet. Flexible guy. And he wrote a poem called Scotch Drink, all about the glory and majesty of Scotch. I'll keep it short. It's sensational. There's for the barley geeks amongst you, there's a reference there in fifth or sixth line. The reference isn't beer, it's bare barley, okay? The ancient barley they used in Scotland at the time. All right, here we go, folks. Let's raise a glass. Let other poets raise a fracas about vines and wines and drunken Bacchus, and crabbit names and stories raucous, and great alug. I drink the juice, Scotch Berkamachus, in glass, orange jug. Slanjava.
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 Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us.
I love it.
Not a bad way to start. That is
Not at all.
Beautiful tropical fruits and oh boy,
Couple of comments coming in from the chat. It looks like everybody's pouring and dram at this point. Canister Shot says, new member won the lottery, poured a dram of 112.73, which we'll get to in a bit.
Nice.
Charlene Thompson says 112.73 here as well. Michael Farley said, just poured a 53.281 to start. It's always funny reading all the, just reciting all the codes back and forth.
Michael, happy Burns night, sir.
Yeah. Michael Hart says, toasting with Tingle All the Way, Cask 63.64.
Nice.
One of the more memorable names.
Yeah, I think this is a great whiskey to start with. I think the name suits it beautifully.
And I saw that someone makes their own haggis. Does someone make their own? Pam
Wow.
is rocking the haggis. Tip of the cap to you, Pam. And I have to make a quick mention of my buddy Joe Germano out in Seattle. Great member for a long time. We met at a Burns night in New York several years ago. Joe sent me haggis, and I just couldn't quite get it together to execute eating it on screen. So, Joe, my apologies. I will eat this haggis, I promise. I just couldn't do it tonight with the baby sleeping and everything. Who knows what kind of noise I would make. So, yeah. Lovely. Any comments on this whiskey, guys?
It's so interesting to I mean, it's not often that you sort of get to enjoy a whiskey. 29 years old, very light, very delicate. It's just it's the one that it requires a bit of thought. Like, it's just one to sit back with because it is so light. Again, it's sometimes it's tough when you're streaming in front of everyone celebrating here, but it's such a beautiful whiskey. I think all day long, especially particularly maybe if it were earlier in the afternoon, something to just sort of sit peacefully with and reflect upon. All of life's joys or woes. This will definitely reward with patience, I guess. Yeah. Because it's so nuanced, and a refill barrel. I mean, that's in theory at least a fairly inactive cask, so the malt is really coming through.
Yeah, I think it
very pretty.
Offers like beautiful kind of dusty barn, like dried hay notes, and I found that like some whiskeys you open and they kind of change over time. Like every time you have it, it's a little bit different, but this has been very consistent, and every time I've tasted this whiskey, it just brings forward that like malty hay, like dusty kind of barn note on it. And I really love that in this whiskey. So
you've tried it a few different times, Jenna.
I have.
And have you sensed kind of an evolution since the bottle has been open a few weeks maybe, or a few days? I don't know what you're
I think
doing out there.
I'm enjoying it every time that I've been able to taste this. Like I said, it's so consistent. I don't feel like it has changed enough for me to tell a difference.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those ones that you can like kind of rely on in a sense. You can always go back and it's going to be the same. And that's what I really do love about this.
Well, that's a really gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous whiskey. Very nice. Jason, I see you have a half and a half there.
I do. Cleansing the palate. Yeah, I'm a professional.
Absolutely.
Got to do it. Cheers.
Great.
It's a delicious whiskey. Well done.
Question from Tom Dayton: does haggis scare babies? Tom, maybe that's something for you. Your comment about having a baby.
We haven't moved her out of our room yet, so it might scare her. In the middle of the night, for reasons that probably everyone can get. But
put two and two together. Got it.
Yeah. Sorry, inappropriate probably, but hey. I'm drinking. It's Burns night now, baby. So, So Jason, you came to the U.S. with all of this knowledge of Robert Burns. Did you already find like an able and willing audience to kind of share this with, or was it something you kind of had to work at first to sort of get interest? I guess maybe my question is how much of your clientele, let's say, really knew about Burns night and Burns supper and all of that, the sort of tradition?
I think it's a good question. I don't have an exact answer for you. All I do know is that, back in 2010, in 2011 January, faced with obviously want to put on a Burns night, you put one on and it sold out. So we were like, oh, well, we'll do a second one. It grew, and so forth. And then by like the level of interest has been pretty phenomenal. Each year added on a little bit of an extra element to the whole entertainment element. Like for instance, bagpipers. I teamed up with a dance group called the Boston Highlanders. They've performed at every one, so we always have 4 dancers inside the Haven. I mean, it's such a small spot, and what would I call it? Well, obviously intimate would do the trick. It's an intimate spot whereby, we've got these 4 dancers, their parents, because these dancers, just to let everyone know, are about ages 8 to 15, let's say. So they're in full regalia. I have a piper, and they start off the event. Now, to give you a sense of the room here, obviously, Tom, you've been here. To enable that to happen, we've actually got to move one of the tables where 10 people are going to sit to the side to create that dance floor, dance area. So that's kind of a sense of what we do, and we make it, we kind of built this element on top of that element, on top of that element. And I mean, as everyone who's been to a burnt supper before will know, you've got the immortal memory. Let's talk about Burns and in a florid style and tell everyone about the history, the background, the influence, a little bit like what I did just before. The address to the haggis, which we'll do later, that's part of it. Pipes play a huge part of it. We've always had a piper for it. So once word got out that this is what we were doing and a pretty legit version of it, that's when we had 5 nights sold out. We can't do more than that. I mean, let me tell you, the 6th night comes and I walk up to a table and someone asks for a burger. It's an actually really lovely moment because we've just got out of Burns mode, back to normal mode. And it's a weird thing because the energy level is high. I mean, it's a great celebration. You're drinking for 5 nights running. We've done Scotch tastings at the end of them as well. Obviously, you were one of those last year. In fact, let me tell everybody a quick insight into Tom. I managed to get Tom up. It was a loose Scottish link to an ABBA song called Super Trooper. And we had a music night that night, host Scotch Malt Whisky Society. And there's one line, and it was, I was sick and tired of everything when I called you last night from Glasgow. And I let Tom take the mic to the next line, and I walked away because I didn't know the rest of the song, but I just know that line. So that was our next chapter of the Burnt Suppers that we're doing. It's the 2020 version. Maybe that was.
I always seem to come on open mic night. So after the tasting, I close the joint.
We closed it, yeah. Well, 5 nights in a row going back to that is a lot to ask for, but it works well. And the Scottish diaspora in Boston obviously exists. There's a Scotch Society, so those folks all come. The Boston Highlanders dance group. So there's elements that are already existing. They have become a part of it. And obviously the curious folks that want to know what the hell this is all about come, and they come back. That's a beautiful thing. Usually the repeat customers there. It's such a fun event. You get away with murder in terms of jokes. The song level is fine because everyone had a couple of friends. So, and then that's what life's about. It's just making new friends around the table and doing some poetry. I think Absolutely. That's in keeping with exactly what Burns poetry is all about. Yeah.
Jason got a comment here. Oh gosh, memories of playing guitar with you. Are you a guitar player?
I would put the things around player. Yeah, I can strum. Yeah.
Jason's a crooner through and through. He's a crooner. He has the voice of an angel. I can attest to that.
Is it the SNL thing? Don't make me sing. Yeah, that's me.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was a blast. I mean, you got some fans, and you got some fans here in the chat.
That's fun.
I always, give it my best shot to do a burn supper, but I have to admit that 3 years of doing burn suppers before I met Jason and saw what he did. I mean, there's one thing to get on the kilts and get the pipes and get all that organization going and have some nice food and conversation. But what I have to admit was lacking was that sense of, like when you get together and you sing a song, everybody in the room sings the song together, like several times throughout the night. That's a lot of fun. And it really, it turns kind of a heightened, elegant evening with whiskey into more of just a community, kind of interaction and just having a wonderful, wonderful time. So, it was a great lesson for me, for sure. And I'd be hard pressed to find someone who does it better than you. So with that, I think maybe we move on to our next whiskey, which is like a really gorgeous color in the glass. So
sorry,
I have it here. I'll show that to you folks real quick. This is cask 41.136 Varnished Crumpets. This is a 12-year-old out of the Central Speyside in a refill ex-bourbon hogshead. So our first was a refill barrel. Now we're in a refill hogshead, 12 years old, from a distillery you don't really see outside of blends, basically Johnny Walker blends. So, this is one of those points about Society whiskey, something that you typically won't see on a shelf other than a Flora and Fauna release from several years back. So a great opportunity to taste whiskeys that wouldn't otherwise be available in single malt form. And here we are in a single cask. So how about Jason, can I trouble you for one more little lesson and toast here?
Sure. We've another Burns one here. There's 3 verses. It's not too long, but it's in keeping with the 2020 theme of last year. A little bit of realism here. So this is to everyone who's perhaps had a hard time in the last year, but we're getting through it. Let half-starved slaves in warmer skies see future wines, rich, clustering, rise. Their lot old Scotland envies, but blithe and frisky, she eyes her freeborn marshal boys. Take off your whiskey, but bring a Scotsman, fair as hell, clap in his cheek a Highland girl. Say, such is Royal George's will, and there's the fool. He has nae thought but how to kill. 2 at a blow. Scotland, my old respected mither, the whiles ye moistly ewe your leather, till why ye sit on crops of heather, ye take the dram. Freedom and whiskey, gang together. Take off your dram. Slàinte mhath.
Slàinte.
Slàinte.
I just want to say this whiskey is sensational. So, yes,
yeah, I mean, I'm still nosing. It smells fantastic. Yeah.
Wow.
I think, Jason, it was funny because the 3 of us were talking just on text about the selection for this evening, and which whiskeys to feature. Of course, there's a lot to it. And I think was intrigued by this on paper, having not tasted. I had not. I don't know, Tom, if you or Jenna, if you had tasted.
I haven't. No.
On paper, I think it's so funny how sometimes the most memorable or really the standouts are ones that you would never expect. And we just had a beautiful 29-year-old Highland. And to go here, it on paper, it's like it's a bit younger. Such full flavor.
That
and
is,
impact, and really real character, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Nose is beautiful. Taste is so rich and just like full bodied. That's stellar. Do we have any of this left in the shop by chance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a winner.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
we just released this not too long ago. I think it was actually the main outturn of January. So Varnished Crumpets. If I may, I will regale you with a bottle note.
Please.
In American.
Speak American. Please speak American, Tom.
Highly okay. Highly polished, punchy, sweet, and full of juicy, herbal, chocolatey, fruity, gooey crumpet notes. Larger than life and bigger than you'd expect. I could get on board with that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good bottle note. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's delicious.
stellar.
I mean, this kind of whiskey could stand up to all kinds of food, of course. You know, and perhaps if you think it might be a bit too powerful for some dishes, you just dilute it a little bit, you know, dial down the ABV, and you have a pretty elegant sipper that might pair better with your palate or whatever you're serving. But man,
I may have to pair this with a crumpet, an actual
yeah,
real crumpet, and taste that too. That's good.
What exactly is a crumpet, by the way? Like,
It kind of looks like an English muffin, but it's not split like an English muffin, but the top has like little air pockets, little bubbles in it. At least that's what my crumpets look like.
Yeah, and less bready, more pancakey. More
Yeah.
But a thick crepe with holes. So when you
There you
put
go.
butter, it melts in, and you've just got this gooey deliciousness. And when you bite in, it probably dribbles down your chin, and that's good luck. But the taste is sensational.
I love them. I slather like clotted cream or like homemade lemon curd on top. Like you put in the toaster oven, it gets a little toasty, and then you just slap like a big spoonful of lemon curd. Or I'm hungry.
I like mine with Marmite. Gotta be honest.
Oh.
Marmite, the crumpet, a little bit sensation, but I defer to the lemon curd though. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's very good. I'll try the Marmite. It's always in stock here. I cook with it often, so I'll have to try that.
With the crumpet, Marmite, melted cheese. It's a lot.
Ooh. Okay, well, I'll give that a whirl.
Shout out to in the chat. In the chat, we have with the most creative YouTube name ever, Customer. Customer has says, I bought a bottle of 41.136 a week ago. It's next on the list to be opened. Customer, I would go ahead and open it right now. You know, sip along with us while it's still in our glasses, because this is thing. And I just have to give a shout out to the funniest exchange in YouTube we've seen in a while. Michael Farley says, excuse me, sorry, Mark, sorry, Michael above you. Michael Hart says, I found out 5 years ago we have Scottish ancestors. My dad was embarrassed by it, to which he received the response from Scott Nicholson that says, my Scottish ancestors are embarrassed of your dad. I don't know what's going on here, guys, but that's pretty funny. So Solange to you as well. So.
And I happened to catch something from Suzanne Ritchie in Knoxville. So just a quick cheers to you folks in Tennessee.
Cheers, Suzanne.
In some time since we've been to Jig and Reel. Another amazing bar. It reminds me of the Bon Accord in Glasgow. The whiskey selection is phenomenal. The staff, led by Anton, is terrific, and they have well over 100 different bottles of Society whiskeys. So, if you're ever going, passing through Knoxville, maybe going to a Volunteers game or something, it is absolutely worth your time to stop by Jig and Reel, and on your way to Boston and the Haven, of course. But it's a wonderful place. They do have some pretty killer Scotch eggs and plenty of other tasty treats and a tremendous whiskey selection. So, Suzanne, we'll see you soon, I hope.
I hope to I've heard such good things. I've never been. I just went to Knoxville for the first time a couple of years ago. Loved it. Beautiful part of the country. And also, an update. Customer has said that he or she is going down to the basement to get it. We are in business, Customer.
Nice.
Welcome to the party. Wow, it's so great to have so many. We're at 132 viewers right now at this moment. Really appreciate you being with us, and of course, we can always say it's unfortunate we can't be together in person, but I think this is great. We can have more of us together. That's the one trade-off. Is I'd love to be Jason with you at the Haven, like that. I'm looking there with the antlers and everything, and the mood and the ambiance is beautiful. It's so great to at least be with many more members and others as well on YouTube.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, and as I've told you, I'm still very new to this whole thing, but it's great to be able to have so many people involved. we love doing in-person events, and you get to touch on, say, maybe 30 people a few times a month in specific cities, because we're a small team and we can't get everywhere. So, this isn't exactly how we might want it in another situation, but it is, it's really nice to get more folks involved, regardless of where they are. They can at least pour a dram and just enjoy the whiskey and enjoy each other's chatting and my rambling. I'll be quiet now.
Well, comment from Ellie Loria says, Boston misses you, Tom, and so do Cam and I.
Oh, Ellie, Cam, you guys are fantastic. Again, I mean, they're like, they are just young and hungry and just fantastic. Ellie has been helping me out a little bit in Boston when I go there, and hopefully at some point she can do some events there with me as well. And again, just can't wait to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
A comment from a couple of my Chicago people here. Delilah's is the comment. That's my old supping ground, and haven't been there for almost a year. It feels like it's just crazy. Craig, good to see you, Craig. Craig's in here. R.I.P. Fountainhead, Chicago. Unfortunate, yeah, that was a great partner bar of ours, Fountainhead, Chicago. Obviously, business is certainly tough during the pandemic. And then a comment from Jonathan Galloway, who says, just ordered a bottle of Varnished Crumpets. Excited to try it with your reaction here. So enjoy it, Jonathan. I think you will. And to customer or anybody else who has this bottle, love to please comment below. We'll be going through a couple more after this, of course, one being the 112.73. And obviously we'll spend some time. It sounds like a lot of you have that at home as well, but if you have any of these, please comment below, and we'd love to share our opinions together. So it's just great to see everybody doing that.
Fantastic. All right. So is it time? I mean, is it already time? I feel like we've gone through 2 whiskeys. Jason, you might want to unmute yourself for this, buddy.
I guess so. Could be time.
I think it may be time for the the pièce de résistance.
Okay.
If you would pardon my French for a second.
Jason, I'm going to give you center stage here. Let's change up this.
Yeah.
Okay, I might just stand for this one, right?
Sure. Whoa. Hello.
Whoa. There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so here we are again, folks. Perhaps Robert Burns, one of the most famous poems he's written. Quick introduction. He's written Red, Red Rose, Bob Dylan's biggest inspiration. Old Lang Syne, the second most popular song in the world. Most sung song. Sing it every New Year, of course. You all know these songs. Lots of things you know about Burns without realizing it. But what we have here is a poem that apparently Robert Burns made up on the spot. And he later noted what he had said. So it was done in a fun moment with friends around a table, akin to what we're doing right now. And he jokingly referred to the haggis on the table and made an allusion as to how amazing this haggis was and how much better it was than any other food out there, and how the Scots are, the greatest nation in the world, etc., etc. So the poem, The Address to a Haggis, by Robert Burns. Fair fall, your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain o' the pudding race, aboom the my attack your place, pinch, tripe, author. Well, are you woody o' a grace, as lang's my arm. The groaning trencher, there you fill, your hurries like a distant hill. Your pen was hilt to mend a mill in time of need. And through your pores, the dews distill, like amber bead. His knife, see, rustic, labour decked, and cut you up with ready slicked, trenching your gushing entrails bricked like honey ditch. And oh, what a wondrous, glorious sight. warm, reeking, rich. Then horn for horn, you stretch and strive. Deal take the hindmost on the drive till all their will, so all kites believe are bent like drums. And all good men, maist like to drive, bethink it hums.
Nice.
Is there that is French ragout? Or a lieu that would sow a sou? Or fricassee that would make a spew with perfect scunner? Looks down with sneering sconfy view on sick of dinner. Poor devil, see him o'er his trash, as feckless as withered rash, his spindle shank, a good whiplash, his knee a knit. Through bloody flood or field to dash, oh, how unfit. But mark, the rustic, haggis fit. The trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wellied knee a blade. He'll make it whistle, and legs, and arms, and necks, he'll sned like taps of tristle. You powers, will make mankind your care, and dish them up, their bill of fare. Old Scotland wants nae skinking wares, that jokes and luggies. But if you wish a grateful prayer, get a haggis. Sanjivar, folks, to a haggis.
Sanjay,
That was
well
awesome,
done.
man.
That was fucking great. I have to say, I've never been so happy to be in the comfort of my own home as I was when you pulled out that knife, though. That was
Yeah, he can wield it. Dude, he's in Boston, right? I mean, you got to wield it.
right on.
Yeah, that was pretty good. The knife wielding.
Yeah.
No
Wow,
cut.
Jason, that did not disappoint, man. Did you even have a haggis in front of you?
I did not. It was a
Wow.
trick.
Tremendous.
Trick. Yeah. We did sell haggis this year, though. Once the COVID-19 situation kicked in, we did not make haggis from about March onwards. It's not exactly a summer fair dish, but we continued with takeout and patio dining, all the things. We're still here. But of course, for a burnt supper, one must have haggis. So we made plenty of it. So it's good. There's only ourselves and one other place makes it in Boston. It's a really good butchery called Savino's that makes their version of haggis. So that's what we did. It's great. Yeah. What are we drinking next, Tom?
Well done. Let's move on. Yeah. Let's pull this.
Yeah.
One
So this is the Burns bottle. This is our Burns Night bottling exclusive cask for the United States this year. There you are. That Jason has it. Sweet and savory excitement. This is distillery number 112, cask number 73. It spent all 13 years in a second fill Madeira hogshead. Is that right, Jenna?
Second fill ex Madeira hogshead.
Right, all 13 years. So no additional maturation here. It was all in that Madeira hogshead. And actually, Jenna, you and I were just talking about distillery 112. What was it? A week ago? Last Monday? Or maybe it was Tuesday because of Martin Luther King Day. So less than a week ago, we were sipping another amazing number 112. You want to talk to us a bit about the distillery and this dram?
Yeah, so this particular distillery is pretty fascinating because they have the ability to create many different styles of whiskey under one roof. They have, I think 7-8 different stills inside of the distillery with straight neck, swan necks. They have rectifying plates. They have kind of this just like menagerie of stills, so to speak, and they're able to create some really remarkable spirit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular spirit comes from the straight neck stills with the rectifying plates.
Yes, the rectifying column.
Yeah, our rectifying column. And yeah, so it's I'm always excited when we see a 112 or really anything from that particular distillery. I know 135 is another number from this distillery, and some of our grain whiskeys also hail from this amazing little place. So
you have 135, 122, 112, and G15.
G15, yeah.
From the wee bottle, all coming from under the same magnificent, like Willy Wonka of whiskey roof.
Yeah, I was just talking about the 135 earlier today, and how that whiskey was it was one of the ones that we bottled. And it was just, Ben was there when I tasted it for the first time. We were in Vegas, and I tasted that whiskey, and it just completely, just totally knocked me off my feet. And so I still remember it. And I still actually saved the bottle. I couldn't get rid of it. So they do some pretty cool stuff. But yeah, this is 112.73 sweet and savory excitement.
For context, that was back when we tried to recruit Jenna to join our team, and we were all very hungover in Vegas. And I said, we got to do this live stream, and you should join me as a special guest and convince the powers that be that you're fit to join us. And it was probably 10 or 11 in the morning after a night of, a bunch of whiskey Instagrammers getting together. Anyway, yeah.
But you told me as we were walking to I thought I was just going to get to taste some of the whiskeys. And you're like, oh, by the way. And I was like, oh, okay, great.
He was surprised it was good. He was surprised it was good.
And he was like, don't blow it. I was like, okay.
Ben continues to surprise and delight every day.
But it worked. Here I am, right?
Indeed it did.
Jason, can I ask you, it was such a beautiful address. Would you mind kind of sharing your thoughts on the whiskey itself and maybe tell a story with it? It doesn't have to be a poem, but I kind of just love to hear your thoughts, as poetic as they may be.
Well, taking this bottle in hand, 13-year-old whiskey, huh? I always like to think of what was happening 13 years ago. So clearly, we don't want to get political, but that's an easy benchmark. My football team still hadn't won anything in their history, so that's another benchmark. The Haven was a glimmer in my eye at that point. So I love thinking like that, because you're 13 years in that cask. You kind of get a sense of respect for what you were actually drinking, right? It gives you a really respectful viewpoint on literally this glass. This liquid was sitting in that barrel when you were thinking about opening the Haven, or Jenna, you were at college, or I don't know, 13 years ago. Tom, you were back in jail and you were about to get out.
That's right. Yeah.
All those things.
Perfect.
The point is, it gives you a time perspective. So what I like about that is, and there's a distillery in the northeast of Scotland called Fettercairn. Now, I went for a distillery tour with my mom and my dad. Now, my mom's since passed away, but when I drink Fettercairn, one of the beautiful moments I have, sincerely, is I ever think about that, right? I'm drinking liquid that was in those warehouses when I walked through them. And I'm not being macabre, but there's a sense of this history and time that I love about Scotch. It really is true. And it's such a evocative thing that when I'm drinking we just drank 29-year-old whiskey there. And we're having 13-year-old here. And not to get into the taste aspects of it, but the time element for me just knocks me out. And it's how you don't get that with any other drink, really, do you? And that's something that I love about it. I do have one toast that will give you a sense of time. And this is something we can sing to this drink about, because it elaborates on the purpose of when Scotch became very popular in Scotland, and it's how it was used. It would be somebody would come to the door for a transaction, they'd be given a drink, and it was almost an exchange thing, right? So this is an awesome little toast, very short, and it goes like this. When neighbors anger at a plea, And just as wood can be, how easy can the barley brie cement the quarrel? It's I the cheapest lawyer's fee to taste the barrel. Slàinte.
Slàinte.
I love that, Jason. You know, I think as the Scotch Wine Whisky Society, so much of our focus at all times is just put towards the spirit, the liquid. When we select our cask, it's all about the quality of the spirit. But when we flip the cards around and we're just sitting here enjoying the whiskey, I'm with you. Age is a number to some, and it's part of what makes a whiskey what it is. But I think just to reflect on the time, what the world was, where the world was, what life was like at the time the spirit was distilled, the journey it's gone through from distillation, really from growth to distillation to the glass. I think that's all part of the experience, and I love that. And 13 years, it doesn't seem, from whiskey years, it's not a long period of time, but in life, so much has changed in 13 years. You know?
Yeah, this is, I got married almost 13 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, so this is kind of crazy.
When's your anniversary?
Anniversary whiskey.
Almost. It's July. So,
July.
Well, May. Well, actually, this is actually 3 days off of the day I met my husband. So,
whoa,
crazy.
And that's why I sent you a bottle. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet and savory excitement.
There you go.
Absolutely. Perfect.
I just want to address some of the comments, you know, of course, of this bottle, because so many members have this. This was a U.S. exclusive release. And so while I appreciate there are more bottles of this to go around than most that we release, it is still limited. So apologies again for our members who didn't get a chance to get this through our lottery system. There will be more sort of like it, and I hope, kind of coming down the lines, and that's always good. But I just want to kind of go back. First of all, the big breakthrough of the evening, everyone, is customer has opened the bottle. Customer says he or she loves it and will be ordering several more.
Talk about a journey.
And also can't wait to attend Burns Night next year at the Haven. I've been in the Haven once and it was fantastic, says customer. Thank you, customer, for the feedback there. But no, some wonderful comments just about the whiskey too. Saying Craig just cracked into 112.73 tonight. I think I'm in love.
Wow.
And Charlene says amazing for only 13 years old. Connery Carson says this was such a great choice for Burns bottle. Mincemeat, baked pies, both sweet and savory, treacle chocolate, and sarsaparilla to me. It tastes of the encapsulation of an entire feast. That's interesting, yeah, because Madeira wine is really sort of like a funky, sticky, sweet type of wine, but it is kind of that savory undertone.
For sure.
Can I ask a question, John?
Yeah.
And Jenna, obviously, would you be able to answer the question as regards? I'm often intrigued as the different cask sizes that are used and how that affects flavor. We know a little bit about that clearly. Where does the Madeira cask fall in, whether from bourbon to sherry all the way up? Where is the Madeira? I don't know. Port pipes are somewhere they are bigger, but is a Madeira cask typically larger than a sherry cask? I don't know. I'm not putting you on the spot. I just wondered.
So
we Google that.
This is a hogshead.
This is a hogshead.
Which is about. I'm blanking on the capacity, but it's sort of the standard of Scotch whiskey maturation. Though most of them are American oak, ex-bourbon hogshead. So in terms of size, this is pretty standard. You know, a bourbon barrel would be smaller by comparison, by volume, and so would have a greater content. Yeah. I
think bourbon barrel's like 200 liters, and then the hogshead's like 225.
Okay.
Or something like that. Like it's, if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of the size difference.
Because the yield from these,
something in there.
Well, I think the ASB is 225, and then the hogshead is a little bigger than that, like
a little bigger.
245, 235, 245.
Okay, but it's not by much.
Without going to my cheat sheet here, no, it's not that much. No, and I can't speak to like Madeira production at large. You know, I mean, they're weathering these fortified wines outside and such, and maybe there's an optimal vessel size for that. I'm not sure if it's a hogshead or if that just happened to be the cask that we got. Mm-hmm. You know, that somewhere along the line there was a transaction between a Madeira producer and the distillery. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe that was a one-off. I'm not really sure. It's a great question, and sherry we know goes in much larger vessels typically, but Madeira I would imagine kind of follows suit, but not 100%.
It's interesting because I don't know this to be a fact. Maybe Tom, you have some insight, or anybody else, or Jenna or Jason. But obviously Madeira is a Portuguese island at the moment, and the other type of fortified wine coming from Portugal is port, which is traditionally matured in the port pipe, which is like this massive cask. And I've been hearing that, and visiting distillers in Scotland, they've sort of, with the port cask they've been getting, they've sort of ceased using pipes just because these big casks are so difficult to use and to transport, and they're really prone to breakage, that there's sort of been an interest in going smaller with port, at least down to the French oak barriques. And I'm curious if Madeira is doing that, or if, of course, these casks that we get for the most part come from all over the world, but this is a full term, right? So
yeah,
it's a full term.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, I can speak to the different kind of grape varietals that come out of Madeira, but as far as the vessels themselves,
they're drums. I believe they age Madeira in drums.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if this is
that sounds difficult to manage. Just much like a pipe, just as far as maintenance and any sort of necessary repairs and such. I don't know. Plus you can only put so much single cask whiskey in one of those. It's gonna be a lot
giant drum.
Although lots of room for the whiskey to breathe and develop too. So,
So that's the big mystery, everybody. If has Madeira gone the way of the port in moving?
Help us out.
Right, help us out. This is the nerd moment of this evening. Has Madeira production sort of lent itself to the smaller hogshead? Because we have seen Madeira is a pretty unique cask type, or an ex-Madeira cask. It's pretty unique for what we see, or with Scotch whiskey as a whole. We've seen quite a few, and I think most of them from the society have been through hogsheads. So could be us.
Yeah. And we dabble in quite a few sherry hogsheads as well. So
I was going to say, I've seen a few of those.
There are more hogsheads, maybe not more hogsheads than butts, but there are still. I mean, there are a considerable amount of hogsheads. I feel like I could count on one hand how many times we've seen a port pipe come through, maybe for a 93 and maybe for a 10. But port pipes are very, very rare.
What old whiskey, though?
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is delicious. Ben, this is one of those whiskeys that you and I tasted back in, February of.
Is it?
Yeah, 2020.
It is?
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
It's funny because
along with a few of the others, and we both commented, we were like, maybe because we were fresh off of a Burns, like basically a Burns tour, but we were like, wow, this would be killer with haggis. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm glad everyone enjoyed it so much. That's fantastic. We're looking forward to releasing another Burns cask for 2022.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is yet, but we're gonna find something good for you.
Comment from George Kaplan says, I'm pouring a sample of 9.173. Frankly, I won't give a dram. Madeira cask later this week. We should have known, because that was give a drum. Thinking Madeira drums. Anyway, George says, then I'll kill off this bottle. Love that one. Good to have you, George.
Nice.
Glad to hear you're enjoying that one.
All right. Well, what do we have? One more.
Right. All right. Well, we have one more whiskey here, folks, and I've been really looking forward to trying this. Ben asked if we could taste it in the pregame show. I said, please exercise some restraint. I'm not sure if he tasted it yet.
You said it was fourth in the lineup, and I was saying that means we have to wait, an hour? And I don't know. I just poured it.
Something like that. Oh, we're at an hour right now, precisely. So it's a proper time, I think, to get into this last dram. Before we talk about it, Jason, could we trouble you for just one final toast?
Awesome. Yeah, we can do that. I tried to pick out some toasts tonight that have particular relevance to drinking whiskey, of course, and that's pretty easy to do in the Scottish idiom. So I want everybody to raise a glass there. You can see at home. Another nice short one, which is always the best. We've got the songs later for the after party, but this is the poem. Let husky wheat the hoxed on, and peas and beans at ain or mon, leaves me on thee, John Barleycorn, and eight set up the Ronnie Horn, perfume the plain, thou king of grain. Slanjava.
Slanjava. I'm just going to nose this for now. I can't sip it yet. I'm sorry. Oh.
OMG.
Checkmate.
Oh my gosh.
Who has this bottle? Tom, is that Tom, you have a bottle?
I resign. I just finished watching The Queen's Gambit. So, yeah.
Such
oh my
so
gosh.
aromatic and
it's like perfumed.
yeah,
like it smells like this book could be a perfume.
Fragrance clings to the hand that gives flowers. This is a 26-year from distillery number 26, cask number 151. Excuse me. So this is
wow.
This is also aged in a refill barrel. So another opportunity for the make in this instance, a pretty maritime kind of influence. A lot of this distillery known for its hallmark waxy texture. Interestingly, this one and our Varnished Crumpets are linked through the parent company, because distillery number 26 at one point had to close down for some refurbishing, and they at distillery number 41 they kind of changed up the fermentation regimen to create this sort of waxy new make, this texturally driven new make that was so important to the Johnny Walker blends, to that sort of mouthfeel part of the blend. So for a little time they kind of cross paths there. But in any case, back to number 26.151. Yeah, this is an incredible dram.
It's so fragrant on the palate. Like you can taste smells of this. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah, it's like proper old school, man. I mean, it really is. It's sort of an old era, and 26 years. Like, we're so spoiled, to be frank, with here at society, and maybe Jason and the Haven, where we get to encounter such incredible whiskey all the time. We try not to take it for granted, but 26 years is. We're fortunate we taste quite a few of this age, and this one has, in my opinion, sort of like it's one where you taste every year of it. Like it's gone through a very delicate maturation process that really absorbed a lot from the cask in time. It's interesting. A beautiful name. Fragrance clings to the hand that gives flowers. It's not very floral for me. Like I agree with you, Jenna, that it's perfumey in a way, but it's sort of a bit muskier. It's not. I mean, for me at least, it's not like flower. We've had some whiskeys, some Highland whiskeys that are very floral. It's not that for me. It's more subdued and musky.
Yeah, there's like a vetiver almost like note on the nose on this, and I would wear this. It's beautiful.
I'm getting plenty of that floral element, like white flowers, even some like kind of lilac type stuff going on. I have to be honest, I'm really surprised this is not a Vaults collection.
Yeah.
I'm pretty surprised by that, because I think that this is Vaults level quality for sure. This is special. This is a special whiskey.
Really special.
Can I make a merciless plug? I mean, is that all right? I don't want to ruin Burns Night or anything, but this cask and the first one we tried, Barley Ballet, are coming out tomorrow. We're going to be releasing some bundles for folks to get into, and these two are going to be in a little duo called Black Tie Affair. Couple of black labels just hanging out, making trouble, and so you will be able to purchase those together if you like. But But yeah, this is
it's
very special juice, man. This is special liquid here.
It's one. A couple comments here. I gotta like change the subject because I'm gonna cry. Speaking of cry, Slam and Sean says, "Man, after all these drams, I need to watch the season finale of The Mandalorian again." Slam and Sean, two things. In 2020, I've cried twice. One was the birth of my daughter. The second was the finale of The Mandalorian. So yes, I am with you after this. And
can I tell you something?
Sure.
It's a little embarrassing. My wife and I thought that episode 7 was the finale.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. She's laughing now. She's laughing downstairs. We don't know what happened, but our 7-year-old niece or 6-year-old niece came along and spoiled the season finale for us. I mean, it didn't spoil anything. It was amazing. I mean, the whole series has been fantastic. Yeah. But we totally got schooled in Star Wars by a 6-year-old. So that's fun.
All right, man. As long as you enjoyed it, I think it was the most beautiful thing I've seen on a screen in as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
But, anyway, Merrick says, "Love the waxy notes from Distillery 26." I didn't really, pick that up right away on this one. It's sort of the classical waxy note.
It's in like the finish. It's got like that waxy finish.
The texture's there for sure.
It just breaks apart on the palate. It's not. I don't want to use the word delicate because the first whiskey we had this evening, 29-year-old, light and delicate, it was delicate in flavor. This is full flavor, but it's sort of just on the palate. It just sort of trickles down and breaks apart, and you're like trying to catch every little note of it. This is ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, maybe what I'm saying, but it's so elegant. And Timothy Yatsko says, "Please don't ruin Burns Night with Star Wars, and please don't ruin Star Wars with Burns Night, Timothy. Come on."
No, he's right. This is about Robert Burns.
Wax on, wax off, says Charles. Charles, good to see you. Charles, I saw you were down in Kentucky. Hope you had a nice trip. And it was such a fun tasting that Tom and I did with the Saratoga Whiskey Club. So thanks for the invite again, and good to see you back.
Hey Jason, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
This last cask, 26.151, off of your menu, is there something that this would just go perfectly with? Is it indeed a fried Mars bar?
Well, it could be. I'm expecting this to be a coastal malt, perhaps. So I'm thinking something maybe seafood. I'd like a Scottish salmon with this, personally.
Yeah.
But the deep fried Mars bar goes with everything. It pairs with everything. If you can drizzle some Scotch over the deep fried Mars bar, that works.
Ooh, oh man, I got to get back to Boston.
You do. I'm going to quickly interject with the Star Wars thing and the popular culture element that we're discussing, the juxtaposition of the Burns Night and Star Wars. I did find out a little bit of information for all the viewers at home. I referenced the Bob Dylan, Robert Burns connection. Bob Dylan was asked his greatest inspiration, and he said it was the poem Red, Red Rose by Robert Burns. Now, digging further into that, there was a gentleman, I'm sure plenty of you will know over here. They weren't so big in the UK as a band, but they were obviously in the United States for about 4 decades. Grateful Dead, right?
Oh.
So Grateful Dead's lyricist, his real name was Robert Burns, right? Google it, look it up, whatever. So
wait, who in the Grateful Dead?
Who?
Real name?
The lyricist for the Grateful Dead, the guy that wrote the lyrics. Nobody in the band wrote lyrics. It's the poets that they used, right? I'll look up his name right now, but his real name is Robert Burns. He had a different name because he didn't want to be Robert Burns, right? So let me look it up. But the point being, the Museum of...
I knew Phil Lesh was too generic.
Yeah, Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia. Come on.
Sorry. Go on.
Grateful Dead, Robert Burns, he comes up. He passed away a couple of years back. Yeah, Robert C. Christie Hunter. He was an American lyricist, singer-songwriter, translator, and best known for his work with the Grateful Dead, right? He also wrote Desire with Bob Dylan. He collaborated on the Bob Dylan album. which is weird to think that Bob Dylan wouldn't have had a collaboration with somebody else that wrote words, right? I was quite surprised by that. But that's where they think the Robert Burns connection comes from. And they've discovered that this guy was indeed the great, 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 great grandson of Robert Burns. You heard it here first.
Wow. My mind is blown open, man.
Nobel Prize winner of poetry, couples with a modern day poet who happens to be all the way back to Robert Burns.
I feel like I just like ate a tab and like listened to Fire on the Mountain from Buffalo 1978, right. And like now I'm just off. I'm off. So
do the Google. You'll find it all there. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and clearly
I think this is when YouTube shuts me down.
Exaggerate,
I don't know.
But there's a lot of truth in what I talked about. Yeah.
That's really wild, man. That's a lot of different connections. Wow.
Learn something new every day.
Charles Grabitsky's mind is blown now.
Where does Star Wars fit in all this? I didn't quite.
George Lucas, Burns, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Although.
It very quickly went to the Grateful Dead, which is fantastic.
I'll give you one more. Michael Jackson, Thriller, is meant to be loosely based on Tam O'Shanter, which is a big one.
Which is a bar in LA.
It's on there. Tam O'Shanter.
A shout out to Tam O'Shanter.
Shout out to
somebody made the link at some point. I tried not to, but I just did. It's okay. I'll go back.
Entered the chat.
I'm going back to number 4 here. I'm not saying the name of it still, but I do know it.
It's just such a beautiful whiskey, man, and it really. I'm scratching my head here. Obviously, we want all the members to have a chance, a fair opportunity to order the bottle. I think I'm going to be gunning for one because this is just it's a timeless type of whiskey that you just don't see. I come in about 26 years. It's not the oldest we've seen, especially if you look in our shop now. We have some old whiskeys up there, but it does feel of such an old era. It's an old world type of whiskey, and it's a
special one.
Incredible.
That's gorgeous.
Comment from Timothy Yatsko says the Red Hot Chili Pipers best Scottish band. Prove me wrong, Timothy. I agree. The Red Hot Chili Pipers are fantastic. Though I was listening to Simple Minds today. I think Simple Minds might be my favorite Scottish band of the
What about Run Rig Tartan Army? Their version of Loch Lomond is like, it is so freaking cool, man. It's like 12 minutes long. It's a live song. So the whole crowd, there must be tens of thousands of people there.
Wow.
Just like going to it. That song is fantastic, but Red Hot Chili Pipers are killer. They're really good.
Yeah. Coming from Charles, how many USA bottles?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Jason, you have to be a Pretenders fan, right? Is it the Pretenders? The Proclaimers. I'm sorry. The Proclaimers. The Proclaimers. We've sung that song at your bar so many times.
I have walked 500 kilometers. Is that
that's right. Yeah.
That's right. It's no longer Euro. They're out of Europe. It's definitely back to my own. The Proclaimers is a fantastic a band. I was gonna, when you were on the Pretenders thing. Any person can find a link in any good band for a Scottish, like the Rolling Stones, for instance. The keyboard player who wasn't allowed to be in any of the press shot was called Ian Stewart, and Led Zeppelin wrote a song about him. Boogie for Ian or whatever it was. Yep. Stew. Sorry. Boogie for Stew is the name of the song. And he was a Scottish guy who was in the Rolling Stones. He absolutely was in there till like late 70s. He became their roadie because he didn't look the part. But he did get, he played all the live gigs, etc. So my point is, 1/6 of the Rolling Stones was actually Scottish. Lay claim to these things. I do have a question though. Jenna, what's your favorite Scottish band?
I don't know if I have one.
Oh, come on.
I really don't. I have some obvious homework to do, but I don't.
Do you? Like, if you were to give me other bands that you do like, maybe there's label connections. I'm thinking of like Pixies, you could go 4 AD.
Okay.
Which one?
I'll have to request a list from you so I can kind of like do a deep dive into Scottish bands.
And I'm thinking like what I would have guessed with you would have been like Franz Ferdinand, maybe.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, I listen to a lot of jazz.
Oh, okay.
Like old jazz, and I listen to a lot of composers. So I listen.
Old jazz, like Coltrane on the Junk jazz.
So my favorite is Sidney Bechet. He is, I think, just one of the most remarkable musicians to ever have graced this earth, and so he is my top favorite. But that's kind of what I listen to on a daily basis, is a lot of classical music and a lot of jazz. I
listen now to Sesame Street and
Baby Shark,
Disney lullabies as sung by as performed by the Lullaby Trio, that kind of stuff. Now I
went through that phase a lot, many years ago. So I'm now out of it and can actually listen to music I want to listen to now. So
Jason, Jenna has a daughter who's what, 11 now?
Yeah.
And Tom and I had each had baby girls this last year within 6 days of each other, I think.
Yeah,
apart.
7 days. Yep.
Our lives have become lullabies lately. Of course, except for ours is more like the Star Wars lullaby. All the themes can be in lullaby form on Spotify.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, and they actually do have Grateful Dead on Lullaby Trio.
Wow.
So I'd like to play Broke Down Palace for her when she's taking a nap.
I've gotten a hard time for my Simple Minds call out as being the best Scottish band. People are
I have to like
for that.
Screenshot all of these comments so I can go and on my Spotify tomorrow when I'm working.
Well, I feel like this is the most
plug
engaged.
This
This is the most engaged comment situation in a while. So it's a lot of fun.
General question for everybody just
really
watching
tonight.
We appreciate y'all watching, and just a general question, just to kind of keep it on theme to sort of. We talked a lot about whiskey. We had 4 drams this evening. I think we're all 4 were incredible for different reasons, but sort of standout society whiskey for you in the last year, maybe. I mean, we've had hundreds, I would think, in the last year to choose from. And the reason I ask, I'm just curious to know if there's any commonality. I have this opinion that everybody has their own unique palate, and with so many, I'd be interested to see if there's even any overlap. But so that's a question for the chat. Most memorable society whiskey in the last year. Mind you, or we can say since the virus has hit the U.S., sort of a benchmark.
Do you have one?
I can tell you mine real quick.
Do you have one, Tom?
I have one.
Yeah. What is it?
Go ahead.
In the past, if you're talking about the calendar year of 2020, 63.62 Mediterranean Moleskin.
Really?
That's the freaking coolest dram I've had in a really long time.
A young and sprightly, like a really right.
It's a young and sprightly in a refill sherry butt, I think, or maybe an Oloroso cask.
It's like a really gentle sherry maturation, right?
No, nothing gentle about it. I mean, it didn't get the deep, rich, and dried fruit profile for reasons that our tasting panel are more in touch with than us probably. But it got a heavy dose of sherry, like really, really good. And I was just pulling so many different things out of that every time I went back to it. So that's
interesting.
That's one for me. I mean, I've had obviously a lot of killer whiskey, but that's one that was just so surprising to me, and that I continue to just bring up to people. So,
how about you, Jenna? Do you have a?
Mine was it was 66 point. I can't remember, but it was called "Wafts You to Heaven."
Yeah,
I believe that's what it was. I think that one was just stupid. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I would I would recommend it to people, and then, a week later after they got it and try to call back and say, hey, can I get a few more of these? And I'm like, they're gone now. I thought that one was just absolutely beautiful. And there's been quite a few 35s that have come through the pipeline that have, been really stellar as well. But that Wafts You to Heaven, it's like 60. I have it in this mess somewhere. But that one was really beautiful.
Jason, while the comments are coming in, Jason, how about you? Not a society whiskey, but a whiskey that maybe, somebody sampled you on or something like that, or something you pulled out of your your treasure trove?
I was going to say I've got two that spring to mind. And one was the 13th one you poured me at the New York City February SMWS event. Yeah, the 13th one in particular stays with me. That was very good. Incredible. But I don't remember the number.
I don't either, actually. It was February of 2020. Yes.
Exactly. But let me think. Put me on the spot in terms of that. I think I've got two that are pretty good. Isle of Arran's Sauternes cask was pretty lovely. It was the summer. We got our patio open. I get this whiskey. I start pouring it. And the funny thing is about when you only get one or two bottles in a restaurant setting, a couple of gentlemen took a fancy to it, and they wanted it with soda, and they're sitting outside on the patio, and they went through a bottle of that thing, and it was beautiful. So Sauternes cask is something I've discovered this year. Certainly during the summer, it's lighter, fragrant, absolutely beautiful. So there was that. They have one called the Bothy as well. It's pretty good. I discovered a little bit. And then might be the Bruichladdich thing, that Octomore. It's hard to get over that. I know.
Well, that's a really good segue to Ben, because I believe Bruichladdich is one of Ben's absolute favorite distilleries.
Yeah.
Ben, what do you got, man? What are your favorites? And try to make it not be out of stock, because I think Christopher Gordon's getting pissed.
I guess the question wasn't necessarily a favorite. The favorite is I don't know that I have one, but memorable is the word, because I think things that like jump out at you is, I think part of that for something to be memorable. It's sometimes if you have low expectations going into something. So in a way, this evening, the 41.136, the second whiskey we had, that really jumped out at me. It's a bit unassuming on paper, and it's like a real hidden gem. But I think overall, like the last year, this 26.151, this thing in my glass right here. Look, it sparked the question of what was your most memorable for a reason. I mean, but we've had, looking back, the 53 Volts collection we had. Sherry Carpe Diem.
53.32.
I can't look past that. I had a sip of that after my daughter was born. That's the first whiskey. It just
you and I had a sip of that on a park bench in Campbelltown
before it was a bottled. Yeah,
it was bottled. Yeah,
a little sample.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was the other one. We had it. No, that was it. It was.
No, we had that. Yeah, Ewan brought that.
Yeah,
thanks, Ewan.
Yeah. But. Anyway, I'm going to turn to the comments real quick because we're getting a lot of responses here. And George Kaplan says 35.245, a conversation beats. Hands
you
down
love that,
favorite.
Ben.
That was interesting because I do have a soft spot for anything matured in Chenin Blanc casks, which is, 1 out of a million. Jen and I were doing a live stream here on YouTube and a preview tasting for an outturn. And I sort of missed the memo that this was in a Chenin Blanc cask. And it was sort of revealed to me, and my mind was blown awkwardly in front of a lot of people, and that was that. So just a couple comments I want to read here, just responses here. So Robert Anderson says 89.12, maturity is more than a number. By the way, I love that name for the cast. Maturity is more than a number. Daniel Cleric says 29.271. Patrick says 66.169 spent lees on toast. Rebecca Payne coming in with the classic 66.164. I like big butts. That was a standout name of 2020 for us. Adam Hall says 71.75. Let's get physical. Got me started with SMWS, so will always have a special place in my heart. And I think that's true. Like I was a member long before I was part of the team, and the first whiskey is always going to be sort of a standout. Multi-Alti says a conversation piece, 35.245. Chenin Blanc, wow. So that's 2 right there. In the lead, 77.64. Engaging and entertaining. My only bottle so far, but hey, says Jonathan Galloway. So not a bad place to be. Sunday Evening Scotch says, if I had to pick just one, and this is a good shout out too, 10.183 Velociraptor versus Xenomorph. Wonderful stuff. Was my number 5 in my personal top 10 Scotch whiskey list of 2020. Wow.
Very cool.
So another I like big butts. Again, everybody likes the big butts. That was peated Highland whiskey in a sherry butt was the cask. And
Yeah.
so Inferno Toffee Pudding, Gunsmoke Over the Moors, perfect name. Thank you, Robert. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Ben had no
influence over that name. Oh, here we go. But Connery Carson says, I'm just a newbie from December. Welcome, Connery. With 4 bottles under my belt. Hey, not too shabby, Connery. But 16.48 Gunsmoke Over the Moor is one of the finest whiskeys I've ever had. I'm glad you're enjoying that. Tom and I had a chance. It was almost a year ago, exactly, where we sat down and sampled a few casks, few samples from our warehouse that had not been bottled, and chose a couple. That was one of the 2 for U.S. exclusives. Anyway, goes on and on. Thank you all for responding. Point is, there was some overlap, but it's just great to see everybody sort of has their own sort of answer there with most memorable whiskey. And then Michael Hart says the Maker's Mark 101 Select is a very good cask, strength bourbon. Can't disagree with that.
Hey, man.
Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
so that's that. But lovely lineup, Tom, and
Yeah, this was amazing.
Yeah. It was a really interesting set of whiskeys, and I don't know. I would invite you to go back to the Madeira Hogshead after
Yeah.
26, and the Madeira. Holy moly! It really pops out the wine. The wine element of it really is very prominent. But anyway,
I need to buy some Madeira.
whiskeys were fantastic, but quite frankly, I think they paled in comparison to our special guest, Mr. Jason Waddleton, the Bard of Bedlam. He is fantastic, man. Jason, thank you so much for your time.
Not at all. It's always a pleasure, Tom.
Great, dude. And it just reminds me of how much I need to get back there and do some damn events with you. It's a lot of fun there.
It's the same for everyone. We're all in that little moment. We'll progress, and we'll all do the things that we're dying to do. We just got to drink to that, right? Hold on. Everybody seems to be doing a good job of it, joining in these events. That's a very impressive amount of people you manage to get on board with your organization. I mean, it's fantastic to see. So I'll cheers to that. Thank you for inviting me. We really love being a part of what's going on here. Obviously, we're just big, massive fans of single malt. You guys are the experts. It's great to jump on board and enjoy the programming and the events that you put on, and we'll continue being a part of it. Love it. You're great.
That's great.
Jenna.
Thank you.
Stick around, okay, Jason? Stick around.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for making this night so wonderful for everybody, and thank you everybody for sort of spending your last 90 minutes with us. Really appreciate you.
That's really awesome to have so many people here tonight.
Thank you.
I wish we could. Give you all a big hug, but you'll have to take a virtual one instead.
Hopefully we can all share drams in person very, very soon.
Comment below if you don't mind. Once we'll put the replay, comment below in the actual comment section in the video. Let us know what sort of content you'd like to see. We'll be coming back if you want to do more hangouts like this. Of course, we had some incredible Scottish poetry recited this evening. I don't know that we'll have that every time. It might just be us lonely Americans. But let us know what you'd like to see, what sort of content, more sort of whiskey reviews or previews or whatnot. Obviously, this is, as a community, we're here for you. So comment below. Let us know. Otherwise, is there a parting toast or
Happy Burns night, guys.
Happy Burns night.
Do we start singing Auld Lang Syne, or what do we do here?
Why not? We could do that. Should old acquaintance be forgot, and
the air guitar.
Or ukulele.
Acquaintance be forgot for Auld Lang.
Well done.
This is going to be an unedited video, but that part. Well done. Thank you all.
Dude. And my wife can hear me through the monitor, so I got to be quiet. All right.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you back next week here on the channel for our February Outturn preview tasting, and that's coming up pretty quick. So
yes, on the 2nd.
Thanks, everybody.
Sponsored.